Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel. We have got a massive Chelsea transfer news video for you lot today. This is the first official video here on GBFC since we completed the Chelsea pre-season tour. We uploaded videos from all of the matches. If you want to go and check out any of that content, it's pretty much evergreen stuff on the channel. Make sure you go and check that out after this video. But the breaking news on this wonderful Friday, I am currently next to the palm trees and next to Krabby's Oceanside in Daytona, Florida, on my little holiday road trip with Georgie, who you guys now know very well. If you wonder why sometimes I'm not around, it's because I've got a wonderful woman by my side, but she also makes sure that I get cracking and get to work, because today we have signed Pedro Neto from Wolverhampton Wanderers. This is a deal that has come out of absolute nowhere. Chelsea Football Club have been working quietly on this one. We know that there's been a lot of clubs that have been interested over recent transfer windows in Pedro Neto. So I think that Chelsea, instead of doing what we normally do, which is give briefings to certain journalists so that Chelsea are in the line for this guy, or Chelsea want to get this guy, Chelsea are in talks with this guy, with Pedro Neto, because he's a big player, because he is a player who, at 60 million quid, I genuinely feel as though this is the right value for Pedro Neto. I think we're buying a winger here that is a better winger than Mudryk, walks straight into the first team, probably better right now suited with the way that Maresca wants us to play than a Sterling as well. I think this is such an astute Chelsea signing, and as much as in today's video I was going to come on here and I was going to talk quite a lot about how I can't really get too excited about signings anymore, because I look at the way that we're doing business, I look at the inflated squad, I look at the Potter problems that we had, which was a too big squad, and now Enzo Maresca's got an even bigger squad than Graham Potter had, and I'm like, we are literally giving a recipe to every manager that we bring in, which has failure written across the top of it, because they follow the script that they've been given, and then it's destined to fail. Now, just because we've signed Pedro Neto, who I think is a first 11 signing, that doesn't just like sweep under the carpet the issue that is that the squad is far too big. But what it does answer is my big question in this transfer window so far. When you look at all of the signings that we've made, and we're going to talk Mike Penders, we're going to talk Omar Rodion towards the end of this video, you look at the first team and you're like, I think that what this team needed, or what we didn't need is better to say first of all, we didn't need another 10, 11, 12, 13 players added onto the squad this summer. What we needed was to look at what worked at the end of last season, look at the form that we had, which if we'd have started that a few weeks earlier, maybe if we'd have got off the awful results at home to Burnley, away at Sheffield United, we might even have finished in the top 4 last year, which seems crazy, but just like sprinkle a bit of top first team quality onto an already working machine, and I think Chelsea would have got the best out of pre-season. I think Maresca would have had a much smaller pot of players, but with quality to work with. At the minute, we have got the players returning today to Cobham. Cole Palmer is back, which is massive. Mark Cucurella is back, which is massive. But we're at a point now where we talked last week about Gallagher being banished from the training ground. If Maresca's going to be able to understand what he's got to work with and what he wants to work with here, we're going to have half the squad on one side and half the squad on the other side, because look, 45 members of the squad now. Pedro Neto comes in, the squad is massive. But let's talk a little bit more about Neto in a positive light, because being on the ground with Chelsea during this pre-season, following fans around, talking to loads of you lot, talking to just loads of Chelsea people in general, I feel as though at the moment that it's very difficult to kind of latch on to the positivity at the club, because so many of us are questioning the transfer policy. So many of us can see what I've already expressed in this video, that is, Chelsea just needed some salt and pepper. We needed some players that we can put onto the already starting to get tasty dish to make it click, to make it work, to give us depth with quality, but not necessarily just depth where we've got 11 potential goalkeepers that we can now field at the club. What Pedro Neto brings to this Chelsea team is a directness. Last season, if it wasn't for injuries, which I will talk about the injuries in a moment, but this is such a good signing for us. The man can score goals. The man contributes assists. He's very direct, but can also come inside and be an absolute menace. And I think that when you think about, and just think about this here, because we're going to do a full video on the Chelsea setup as we go into this end of this transfer window, because we just keep on bringing players in. Pedro Neto on the left, Cole Palmer coming in off the right, Nkunku with Nicholas Jackson through the middle. That is a serious front line. You have got creativity in abundance. You have got someone that can play on that right-hand side and cut in. You've got Neto who can do the same on the left. It is an absolutely brilliant signing, this, for Chelsea. And I think, to be fair, when you look at Mudryk's performances during this pre-season, I have said it countless times here on GBFC, the man is not ready for the level of football that Chelsea need him to be ready at. So we need to go and address this problem. We need to go and sign someone who is Premier League proven, who has the experience and has the quality and can already prove and show that he can deliver at this very level in the Premier League. And Pedro Neto is absolutely that kind of player that can get this over the line for Chelsea. I think this is a massive signing. The big question that I still have, though, is what about the striker? Are we still going to bring in Victor Osimhen? When you look at the ability that Omar has, when you look at the way that he plays, there is a lot of potential here. But this is what we say about every player. And I don't want, just because we're now bringing in like a big name and a really good first 11 signing in Pedro Neto, I don't want it to change my personal narrative of, I've got so many questions here about this policy, particularly this summer. We have read so many rumours and stories over the time of this new ownership's tenure that it was a 4 transfer window strategy. And if you remember back to that, this is the 4th window. So the fact that we're buying loads of players to kind of stockpile the squad in the hope that some of them will make it, some of them can be flipped for profit, I do understand this. But we needed those extra quality right now players to ensure that we can be competitive for top 4. Pedro Neto does that. I just worry that Samu Omar partnered with Nicholas Jackson. Mark Yu is there as well, but the more players we sign, the more I think that Mark Yu probably won't have a squad number for us this season. My question is, are we still too heavily reliant on strikers who aren't fully developed yet, who don't have track records of burying? Trust me, bringing in Pedro Neto, looking at Nicholas Jackson's numbers from last season, these numbers are going to skyrocket when you add in even more ability and quality to provide assists. Pedro Neto is that, so fully expect Nicholas Jackson's numbers to soar too. But I still do believe that Chelsea did need a player, and do need a player of a Victor Osimhen calibre in order to get what we could possibly get out of this squad. If we get Osimhen now that you've brought in Pedro Neto, and look, we've heard stories all summer, Chelsea want a high-profile winger, a high-profile striker. Is Omar that high-profile striker signing? At this point, he's completely unproven in my eyes, so I can't stand here with any real authority or integrity and be like, yeah, don't worry about it. I feel like Omar solves the problem that we saw too often last season, that we just don't finish enough of our big chances. We get into great positions. Why? Because we've got good creative players. You've got Cole Palmer, arguably one of the top 5 players in the world right now. You've got him scoring for us, and if he's not scoring, he's literally putting it on a plate for Nicholas Jackson. We've also got to remember Christopher Nkunku, our top scorer during pre-season. He played more minutes than any Chelsea player during this pre-season, so there's no questions about his fitness anymore. And when I look at this Neto signing, it does kind of soften me a little bit when it comes to Nkunku, Jackson, Gu, Omar. If we don't sign Osimhen, is it that much of a disaster? And I think when you start to add goals from the left, the right, the number 10 position, you've got Enzo Maresca using his 8s and going out wide. I feel as though this is a signing that's not only a Maresca signing, but this is a big statement signing from Chelsea, which now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Mike Penders, who has come in. The fee is astronomical. It's yet another goalkeeper. I'm not going to bullshit with you guys. I don't want to bullshit at all this season, but I do want to be optimistic because I've been on the ground in America. I've been to every game, and I am excited for what Maresca's going to do to this team. I'm excited for this season, But if we do miss out on top targets because we keep buying £20 million players that go straight back on loan, Anselmino straight back to Boca Juniors, I get it for the future, but the now. Neto is the now man. So the signing of Mike Penders, now that we're bringing in top level signings, I'm like, all right, well, as long as we're not going to end up with a point deduction because we insisted on buying an 18-year-old from Genk this summer, as long as we don't end up with a point deduction and a huge fine, or better still, a transfer ban, which some people are saying we need a transfer ban and it would be good for us right now. Let's not be crazy, all right? We just need to understand what we need now and make sure that we're not breaking any rules with the buying for the future. That is the way I sit on this whole thing. Samu Omarodion as well could potentially be a very exciting player for us. I think his profile again is scary for Premier League defenders. He's a big lad, he's massive. He can bully defenders, run into the half spaces, make the runs over the top if ever, for whatever reason, we're not playing against the low block, which we will be. Get ready for Premier League football again, ladies and gentlemen, because seeing teams sit with 11 men in their own box and watching Chelsea try and break it down, doesn't matter if we got your Netos, your Nkunkus, your Palmers. We might get better at doing it, but we're still going to have to do it. This is the reality of being a Chelsea fan. We are still expected to beat every team. And the teams at the bottom of the table that don't have the firepower will still sit back and defend. And that's what we've got to remember here. The squad that we're building right now, it should be about bringing in the correct profiles. It should be about bringing in the players that can unlock tight defences, that can move quickly in tight spaces. The concern with Neto is the injury record, but we got through pre-season with no more injuries. Maybe it was the training. Maybe it was the too heavy fitness, running, sprinting focus of Pochettino. Maybe. I'm not going to sit here now and bash Pochettino, of course not. But maybe it is a thing. Maybe the more heavily dominant on-the-ball focus from Maresca in this pre-season is exactly what Chelsea have needed to get through the pre-season, to start the season with a clean bill of health, which is what we have now. I am buzzing for the Neto signing, and I think when you buy a winger with that kind of creative ability, it then by default makes you more excited for the Omarodion signing. It's like, okay, well now I know that he can be served and he can get the ball in the box because we've got players that can find him. Now I can get excited about signing Samu Omarodion. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of these things and all of these like question marks from me during this pre-season about the transfer policy have all been because we haven't improved the first 11. And we can't say that we haven't done that anymore. Pedro Neto is joining Chelsea. This is mega. Let me know your thoughts on this deal in the comments down below. And whilst you're here, let me know your thoughts on Mike Penders, on Omarodion as well, because I know that a lot of the content focus from me recently has been on the games, the previews, the stadiums, the going to the matches and whatnot. So make sure you let me know your thoughts here. We're back into transfer season now. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you are new. We're getting close to 300k. So make sure you subscribe today, and I'll see you all tomorrow. And look at this absolutely dreadful excuse for a car, by the way. It's the only convertible that they had, and it was flipping red. And I'm just trying to mature myself, so I'm driving it. All right, see you in a bit.